Back with us now on the Sunrise Morning Show is Sarah Bassil from In Defense of Christians. Sarah, welcome back.
Good morning, Annie. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Absolutely. So this past Saturday was Armenian Remembrance Day, and I know that IDC was very pleased and grateful that President Biden did, in fact, call the Armenian genocide a genocide. Yeah. What is the significance of that?
Well, like you said, Saturday was Armenian Remembrance Day, and the genocide is very important to remember because we know that 1.5 million Armenians were murdered for their faith, and so it was a Christian genocide, and we know that there was a number of other groups that were also martyred for their faith by the Ottoman Empire. So we are really happy to see President Biden acknowledge the Armenian genocide because it's long overdue. So there's a couple different messages on why it's important, but it really puts Turkey on notice that the U.S. will not tolerate persecution and oppression against Christians. We know Turkey has been very violent in the past couple years in northeast Syria, in Armenia, in its own country, in Turkey, against Christians, and it really put them on notice that the U.S. will not tolerate these things. But it also gave the position that the United States will not allow Turkey to have veto power on the U.S. foreign policy. You know, until Saturday, U.S. presidents had failed to recognize it as a genocide, and basically it's not that they didn't know it was a genocide. We all knew it was, but this told the world that Turkey will no longer have the amount of influence it has on U.S. foreign policy. And so we are really thankful to see President Biden really end this terrible trend. And of course, genocide recognition does help bring justice to the victims of this horrible episode in history. You'll meet many Armenians and Lebanese and Syriacs and different groups that will tell you, oh, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. And these are not people that were so long ago that we don't have connection to them. These are our family members that were simply put to death for their faith. And so it's really important that they do receive some kind of justice. Of course, justice would be this didn't happen at all, but this is an important first step.
Isn't it sad that this is considered such a victory for Armenian Christians, that like just simply in a statement that somebody would recognize this as a genocide, like just use that word? I mean, why is it so hard for leaders to call a spade in this case?
You're exactly right. It's very sad, well, for several reasons, but it's because Turkey had this hold on the United States because we valued our relationship with them in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But we know in the past couple decades, they've really abused that power. And so at a certain point, the United States, I mean, I guess now, but at a certain point, the United States sat down, the leadership, and they said, what's happening is not right. And what they're doing to the Christian communities, they're imprisoning monks, they're denying or they're cutting off water and electricity to communities in northeast Syria. They're attacking churches in Artsakh and keeping prisoners of war from Armenia. These are things that the United States decided it's no longer tolerable and no longer acceptable to turn a blind eye. And so using that word genocide, so it checks Turkey. It ripped off that Band-Aid and it said, you can't do this anymore without any recognition. And honestly, the Erdogan didn't really care. They went out on and they put on a couple statements, and they said it was Armenian gangsters that promoted the unfortunate events of 1915. And that's where they are in terms of, so it's very sickening. And I think the worst part is that they still have support from countries like Pakistan, where they support Turkey's version of the events of 1915. And so it's very alarming. And that's why it's important to remember that our work doesn't stop here because the Armenian genocide was recognized. There are still members of Congress that are on the Turkey caucus. We're promoting we're asking them to leave the caucus because it's important to recognize that there's still atrocities, Turkish forces that are happening around the region, and we need to hold our members of Congress accountable. And we're also still boycotting Turkish products because they're still doing horrible things in the region. And so our mission doesn't just end here because the genocide was recognized.
Well, I wanted to ask, so would you say, is it fair to say that silence from world leaders about this genocide in the era of World War I has actually emboldened modern-day Turkey and the atrocities that they commit today?
Of course. I mean, like I said, this gag rule that Turkey had on the United States all these years was it was very deteriorating. Like it stopped a lot of people from being able to recognize the genocide. For many years, we had diplomats for decades trying to pressure the State Department. We had nonprofits as the Armenian National Committee of America. You had Aram Hamparian the other day. There was a lot of push for this to happen, and it finally took President Biden the courage to do so, and like I said, rip off that Band-Aid. And so we know the United States is a world leader, and we're hoping that other countries take our example and recognize it. A lot of countries already do recognize it. You know, not everyone was under the influence of Turkey the way we were, and so it's very important that the United States, as the leader of the West, as the leader of the world, take that initiative. And so it's also we're also really happy to see this being as the first step, but we also want to remember the additional 1.9 million Greeks, Assyrians, Chaldeans, Syriacs, Armenians, and Maronites that were also killed for the Christian faith. You know, we call on the administration to recognize this devastating effects, because it didn't just affect Armenia, but it had a really negative effect on the region's greater Christian community. So it's very important that we see that going forward from the administration, and we hope to see it soon.
indefenseofchristians.org is linked at sunrisemorningshow.com. Go there and click on their Act Now button, and you'll find a number of things that you can do to help stand up for Christians against Turkey. We've been talking to Sarah Bassil from In Defense of Christians. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Most definitely. All right, it's 12.